This evening, first, the search is over. After more than 2 weeks, the largest maritime operation in Ghana's history officially concludes. 73 lives lost, 30 still missing, and 5 recovered victims who remain without names. The focus now shifts to raising the person itself. Also, more charges could be coming. Attorney General Nandlall warns that 3 men already accused of murder do not represent the end of the MV Barima matter, and the Commission of Inquiry's findings to put more people under investigation. Then a fiery collision on the Coverden Public Road. A van turns into a worksite compound. A motorcycle traveling at speed slams into it, and a 21-year-old rider is dead. His pillion passenger remains in hospital, and CCTV footage may hold the answers. Meanwhile, bringing down the cost of food in Moruca, President Ali proposes a new cargo service run by young entrepreneurs, backed by the Development Bank, along with expanded poultry farming to tackle the region's high prices at the source. And more than 30 Russian missiles rained down on Kyiv overnight, none intercepted as Ukraine warns its air defense stocks are critically low, and confusion over U.S. support leaves the capital exposed. Those stories and more are coming up. Stay with us. Welcome to this broadcast of Channel 2's Headline News Update for August 6, 2026. I'm Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. First up, the legal fallout from the MV Barima disaster could widen, with Attorney General Nandlall warning that additional persons may face investigation or charges depending on the findings of the ongoing Commission of Inquiry. Speaking on his program Issues in the News, Nandlall said the 3 persons already charged in connection with the deaths of passengers and crew members do not represent the conclusion of the matter.
The COI will determine culpability and will look at the evidence and will make findings and recommendations in relation to ministerial responsibility. All of that is set out in the terms of reference. Did you hear me speak about misfeasance in public office, etc., maladministration? All of that will be catered for. Everything has stages. Those who are in charge of the boat, they have been dealt with. More may be charged, for all you know, after the Commission of Inquiry or even before.
The Attorney General explained that the Commission of Inquiry has a broad mandate to examine whether negligence, misconduct, breaches of law, institutional failures, or other actions contributed to the sinking of the vessel and the response that followed. He stressed, however, that the Commission cannot determine criminal guilt or civil liability, as those decisions remain the responsibility of the courts and relevant state agencies. 3 Transport and Harvest Department employees, including the captain of the vessel, a crew member, and a goods superintendent, have already been charged with 72 counts of murder, following a police investigation and advice from the Director of Public Prosecutions. Nandlall said the Attorney General's office played no role in determining those charges. He said the police, the DPP, and other agencies will continue to act based on available evidence and any recommendations arising from the Commission of Inquiry. The Attorney General defended the government's decision to use a tender process to select a company to salvage the sunken vessel, saying the operation is expected to cost between $8 million and $10 million US.
The government has gone out to a tender process to invite bids. Now they have a problem with that. They are critical of that. If the government had gone and chosen some company to do the job, they would have said that the government is handpicking some family or friend, and there would be a cover-up. Now the government has gone to open tender. And that now they have a problem with.
He rejected opposition criticism over the process, arguing that transparency is necessary, while maintaining that the Commission of Inquiry will play a key role in determining accountability for the MV Barima disaster. In other news, Search and recovery operations for the MV Barima, Ghana's deadliest maritime disaster, have officially concluded after more than 2 weeks of effort, the Office of the Prime Minister announced on Tuesday. The Maritime Rescue Coordination Center will remain active, and 5 recovered bodies are still unidentified. The ferry sank on July 18, traveling from Georgetown to Port Kaituma with an estimated 179 people aboard, despite only 133 names on the manifest. The disaster claimed 73 lives, with 76 rescued and 30 still missing. The Ministry of Health continues to appeal for help in identifying the 5 victims. Called the largest maritime search effort in the country's history, the operation involved aircraft, vessels, divers, and emergency teams. French military divers described the extremely difficult conditions, including zero visibility and strong currents inside the submerged wreck. Attention now shifts to recovering the vessel itself, lying in soft mud 28 nautical miles offshore. The Maritime Administration Department has invited salvage contractors to submit proposals by August 14, requiring evidence preservation and environmental safeguards. A 5-member commission of inquiry was sworn in last week to investigate the causes of this sinking and the emergency response. President Ali has pledged full government support. Prime Minister Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips joined an interagency review on Tuesday with the Defense Force, Police, CDC, and MARID to assess the response and improve future preparedness. In court, murder charges against Captain Kevin Price, Chief Mate Rhonda Roberts, and Superintendent Delon Granderson were adjourned to September 7th, following DPP Shalimar Haque's legal advice. Citizens have been protesting across the country, demanding a full investigation and resignations of the Minister of Public Works, Bishop Juan Echil, and the Minister of Public Utilities and Aviation, Deodat Indar. Moving on, police are investigating an alleged armed robbery in South Rhymeville after a 60-year-old woman was robbed by 2 men while walking home on Wednesday night. According to preliminary investigations, the incident occurred around 8:45 p.m. along Congress Drive. The woman had turned into an alleyway when she was confronted by 2 men on a pedal cycle, one of whom was reportedly armed with a handgun. Police said the armed suspect allegedly pointed the firearm at the woman, while his accomplice stole her black shoulder bag containing a Samsung Galaxy cell phone, her national identification card, and a bank card. The 2 suspects then fled the scene on the pedal cycle. Investigators have since questioned several persons, and CCTV cameras in the area are being reviewed as part of efforts to identify the suspects. No shots were fired during the robbery, and the victim was not physically injured, though visibly shaken. Police investigations are continuing. Stick around when we return. Motorcyclist killed, pillion rider hospitalized after collision with van at Coverden. And President unveils plans to slash food prices in Moruca, targets transport and local production.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali rolled out a set of measures on Wednesday aimed at bringing down food prices in the Moruca sub-region, pointing to high transportation costs and weak local production as the main drivers pushing up the cost of living for residents. Speaking to residents in Santa Rosa during an outreach, President Ali said the government is exploring a new cargo service between Charity and Moruca to move food and other essential goods at cheaper rates. He suggested this service could be run by a consortium of young entrepreneurs backed by financing from the Ghana Development Bank.
In addressing the issue of cost of living, we have to address the issue of transportation. We have to address the issue of food production. We have to address the issue of infrastructure. And we also have to address the issue of the private sector not applying predatory approaches to vulnerable communities, especially our hinterland and riverine communities. And this is something, a conversation we have been having with the private sector. We are also looking at the expansion of services from the Guyana Defense Force that can help communities in this regard. Because we have to collectively address in a holistic way the issue of cost of living. And there is only one way, one sure way of securing our communities. That is improving our own ability to produce our own food.
Alongside the transport initiative, the president announced plans to expand agricultural production in the sub-region, including poultry farming, with financing to be provided through the Ghana Development Bank. The president said boosting local food production would not only bring prices down for residents, but also open up new economic opportunities for farmers and entrepreneurs in the region. In other news, a 21-year-old motorcyclist is dead and his pillion rider is in the hospital after a fiery collision with a van on the Coverden Public Road, East Bank Demerara, Wednesday night, sending both riders flying onto the roadway. Police say the accident occurred around 9 p.m. when motor van PAG 8745, driven by a 39-year-old Chinese national of Kurukuru village, was heading north along the western lane of the road. As the van approached the entrance to a workshop compound, it allegedly turned right into the compound without stopping, colliding with motorcycle CR 8110, which was traveling south along the eastern lane at what police described a fast rate. The motorcycle was driven by 21-year-old Christopher Thomas of Yarra Cabra Village, Susdike Linen Highway, with a 24-year-old man of Grand Sand Road, Susdike, riding pillion. Both men were thrown from the bike and sustained injuries. They were rushed to the Diamond Regional Hospital, where Thomas was pronounced dead while receiving treatment. The pillion rider remains hospitalized, undergoing medical care. A breathalyzer test administered on the van driver returned a reading below the legal limit. He is currently in police custody, assisting with the investigation. Investigators say CCTV cameras were spotted in the area, and footage will be reviewed as part of efforts to establish the full circumstances of the crash. Inquiries are ongoing. Don't go away after the break. Europe's wildfire leaves $3.5 billion restoration bill, and the Trinidad and Tobago government to establish 30 joint army police posts across the country.
Good girl forget things.
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lenders, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again. Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Now we take a look at what's happening in the region and around the world.
Good evening, I'm Dominic Gittins. Tonight, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister announces 30 joint army police posts as the state of emergency expands. Russia rains missile on Kyiv for a second time in a week. France records its worst wildfire since 1949. And Myanmar's junta leader visits Bangkok, alarming refugees in Thailand. We will begin in the Caribbean, where Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar has announced plans to establish a 30 joint army police posts across the country over the next 4 months as part of an expanded security measure under the ongoing state of emergency. The initiative responds to community calls for a stronger security presence. Latest crime statistics show 222 murders recorded so far this year compared to 232 during the same period in 2025. Russia launches more than 30 missiles at Kyiv overnight, its second mass strike on the capital in less than a week. Al Jazeera's Audrey McAlpin reports.
Overnight into Wednesday, Russia launched its second mass attack on Ukraine's capital in less than a week. More than 30 missiles were fired toward Kyiv in the span of an hour. Among them, what appear to be ballistic missiles carrying cluster munitions. Ukraine's president says the strikes targeted civilian businesses and warehouses. This is one of those locations. It's a private postal company called Nova Poshta, and you can see here the massive crater that was left by one missile. 3 people were killed here, and over 10,000 packages were destroyed. President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly appealed to allies for more Patriot missile interceptors to defend against attacks like these. But Kyiv says supplies remain critically low. Of the more than 30 missiles launched overnight, not a single one was intercepted.
I simply don't know how to live through this. My son-in-law is also fighting. I don't know when it will all end.
In July, U.S. President Donald Trump said he would allow Ukraine to produce Patriot interceptors under license. But last week, he appeared to walk back that commitment.
We have not agreed to that. We're talking about it. But it's a hard thing to give away that kind of technology.
Leaving Ukraine once again facing uncertainty. Officials here insist discussions with Washington are continuing.
We understand that Mr. Trump needs to balance taking into consideration different interests in different parts of the world. But concerning scaling up production of Patriots and getting a license for it, it is a question of negotiations.
With no immediate solution in sight, Ukrainians remain increasingly vulnerable to attacks like these. Audrey McAlpine, Al Jazeera, Kyiv.
France has recorded 116,000 hectares burned by wildfire this year, the most since records began in 1949, as heat waves fueled blaze across Europe. Al Jazeera's Bernard Smith reports.
Patrolling fire engines have replaced the summer ramblers in the forest of Fontainebleau. 3 weeks ago, this UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, about 55 kilometres southeast of Paris, was ravaged by fires that scorched 2,000 hectares, equivalent to 2,800 football pitches, in scenes repeated across the continent. The fire was just there, Melis Rozak tells me. She was in the middle of a packed season of training classes at her equestrian centre.
So at the beginning it's stressful because you think you have 30 horses to evacuate in a very short time and we need to make decisions. So it was very, very fast. There was a huge wave of solidarity at that moment, and within an hour and a half, 2 hours at most, all the horses were evacuated.
France's insurers expect claims for the fires to be off the charts. Now, the French government says that the risk of fire is still extremely dangerous nationwide. Here in Fontainebleau, the authorities will decide in the next couple of days whether it's safe to reopen this forest to visitors. But perhaps the most alarming statistic to emerge from this spate of fires is that 70% of them were caused intentionally, according to Interior Ministry figures. A volunteer firefighter is charged with setting one of the fires that burned through Fontainebleau. Europe is the fastest warming continent, so replanting its forests needs careful planning.
The idea is to let the forest rest for at least a year. We are thinking of removing the charred wood, etc., to gradually open up the paths and then take the time to decide what to plant. Then it will be the National Forest Office that needs to ask questions. Which tree species will be suitable for climate change?
Melis says she suffered significant financial losses from having to cancel courses, but credits the local authorities with unfailing support. Across the worst-hit countries in Europe, the EU estimates $3.5 billion in restoration costs alone. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, Fontainebleau, France.
Myanmar's President Min Aung Hlaing has made a two-day visit to Bangkok as his government seeks to rebuild regional ties after years of isolation following the 2021 coup. Al Jazeera's Barnaby Low reports.
Young boys and girls taking the pitch, and their friends watching on the sidelines, while the adults prepare a feast. But it's a rare occasion for a community still recovering from the trauma of war. Many who fled to Thailand from Myanmar say they're on edge, as their country's military-backed government makes diplomatic inroads after years of isolation. Those who are undocumented are especially fearful.
If I get captured here, the authorities will hand me back to the military since it's currently in power, and if that happens, I'm doomed. I'm so worried that I'll be captured.
Mongji was 17 when he joined protests against the coup that ousted Myanmar's then democratically elected government. He later took up arms like many of his fellow dissidents. Now, at 21, he says he just wants to finish high school. So he took the long and arduous journey across the border to Thailand, only to learn a few weeks later that the leader of the coup and now Myanmar's president, Min Aung Hlaing, was also coming to Thailand.
The Thai government should know better than anyone else that the Myanmar military's been torturing and killing civilians because their mortar shells have landed in Thailand.
Mongchi says he's nervous. Myanmar recently publicized photos of detained former leader Aung San Suu Kyi with a representative of the International Committee of the Red Cross. The government has been excluded from official summits since 2021 for continuing its military offensives, which it views as an internal matter, but it's been pushing to restore regional ties. Ahead of his meeting with Min Aung Hlaing, Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul said he's advocating for open dialogue that encourages progress. But armed opposition groups in Myanmar say it'd be a mistake for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, to welcome it back into the fold.
This revolution started because of the military coup. You cannot resolve these atrocities by meeting exclusively with the junta. Foreign governments must also listen to revolutionary forces that have the genuine support of the people.
ASEAN foreign ministers who gathered in Manila last month say they are talking to all stakeholders, but it's unclear whether there's consensus on the level of engagement with Myanmar's government and its possible outcome. Barnaby Low, Al Jazeera.
Thanks, Dominique. This brings us to the end of our regional and global news coverage. Up next is the 3-event forecast. And that's CTV2 Headline News for this Thursday evening. As we take our leave, we invite you to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. You can tune in tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. for rebroadcast and at 7 p.m. for more news. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other.